Okay. Gone? Okay, tonight is Motzei Shabbos, Saturday night. And of course tonight is the first night of Chanuka. So obviously it's very appropriate to give a shir about Chanuka. Chanuka is a very interesting holiday. We all know the story of Chanuka. You know, basically it's the Greeks, Alexander died. His kingdom was split into four. One of the generals that took over was Antiochus. He took over Judea, Syria, Judea, whatever. And he decided to Hellenize Judea, because that's really what Alexander did. It's interesting, the historians consider Alexander one of the greatest figures in history because he brought the modern era throughout the world. He served a very useful purpose. So they were into Hellenization, which is to modernize, to bring people into the, what do you call it, you know, it's like, you're talking about something that happened 2,300 years ago. But, you know, science and philosophy and culture and Greek art and architecture and all this kind of stuff, you know. So he took over, and that's what he tried to do. But also there was they worshipped a lot of idols. So of course he tried to Hellenize some of the Jews, and there are Jews that went with Greece. But obviously Matisyahu, his sons, fought it, and in the end they were victorious. So the real question is, in many ways, and of course, after the battle, 3 years later, that's when they first had the miracle of the Chanuka, the menorah, lit for 8 days. And we commemorate their battle and their victory. And the way we do that, of course, is by the menorah. We light the menorah. And there was a miracle that occurred, of course, that they found only one vial that had not been contaminated. And they used that vial, it was supposed to last 1 day, and it lasted 8. So we commemorate Chanuka, of course, by lighting the menorah and the whole concept and so on. So clearly what we see is a historical event of very significant importance that we commemorate. And if somebody asks you, well, what's Chanuka all about? That's what it's about. It commemorates a historical event, you know. A lot of people look at Chanuka, therefore, as one of the important battles of liberty versus tyranny. It's a classic, you know. Liberty versus tyranny, you know, independence versus slavery. There was a foreign culture trying to impose their values, their religion, their culture on another. And this is the way many people would look at Chanuka. But the truth is, which is very interesting, that Chanuka really, the celebration of Chanuka, really is not really about that. Sounds strange. But the real concept of Chanuka is very different. There are a lot of questions that you can ask about Chanuka. A lot of halachas on Chanuka. First of all, it has 8 candles. And the question is, why? Of course, the answer would be because it took 4 days to go to the Galil to press olives, pure olive oil, and then 4 days to come back. That's 8 days. But is that just an accident? Or was that by design? That this is what God wanted? So why there are 8 candles? Also, there's a mitzvah of hidur, to beautify, to enhance the Chanuka lights. So we do that with oil. And there's going to enhance the beauty of the menorah. Why do we have that? Also, you're not allowed to use them. You cannot use the menorah, the lights. It says it's also lishtamish b'hem, to use them. The critical thing is to look at it. You can you can look at the Chanuka lights, but you can't use them. So you have that concept. Why? And the whole idea of the victory over the Chashmonaim, is that the real idea of Chanukah? Or is there something else, a greater primus? And the truth is, there really is something else. What a person has to understand is that the Jews don't commemorate anything. They don't celebrate something that was. They don't commemorate something that occurred. Even as a memory, Jews are always involved in what's called the Tikkun process. Everything a Jew does is involved in rectifying something now, not in commemorating something that was. Very important distinction. You know, there's a holiday in America, Thanksgiving. So what they do is they commemorate the original landing, pilgrims, whatever, and they gave thanks and so on, whatever. So that's the recall of something that occurred many years ago. But there's nothing really now, other than to get together with the family, to eat turkey, you know. But a Jew doesn't commemorate anything. A Jew does tikkun. A Jew rectifies. He does something spiritually now. It can be connected to a historical event, but the emphasis is on the now, not on what was. So the real question is, what are we really doing with Hanukkah? That is the real question. In any case, so we have these questions. Now, here is the principle involved. Jews have to fulfill spiritual necessities. There's a purpose to creation. That purpose implies things to do. The things that have to be done are really the fulfillment of spiritual necessities. That's really what Jews are involved with. There's a certain deficiency that a Jew has to encounter and remove. That's a spiritual necessity or a spiritual need. What God does, which is very interesting, is that He sets up historical events in which the Jews will then be thrust into. They will then be tested. And the test involves to satisfy or to fulfill the spiritual need. And if they pass, what happens? Then they will have accomplished that task. If they don't pass the historical event, then what God will do is create another historical event where the Jews are retested in order to do this again. You see, that's the model or the formula for a Jewish holiday. It's very different than what most people think. So therefore, the original event, the first time the Jews are given an event in order to accomplish and to do the tikkun, rectify, I call that the primary tikkun event. If they do it, fine. If they don't do it and they fail, so then God gives me a secondary tikkun event, sort of like another chance to undo the damage that they did by not rectifying the original spiritual need. What He does is He puts them to some other task or some other historical event, and that will rectify. Okay? That's a very important formula to understand the whole concept of a Jewish holiday. And this is true of all the Jewish holidays. And what I'm going to do tonight is use Chanuka as a classic example. How really Chanuka, as you will see, is really a setup. It was planned a long time ago. Chanuka is the result of a failed attempt to deal with a spiritual necessity. It's really what it is. So therefore God set up Chanuka, or the whole historical event of the Greeks, in order to rectify that which they previously failed. And that therefore becomes the premise of Chanuka.
What was the event that they failed?
That's the cheer. I'm going to say that.
Oh.
I mean, why else am I here? I mean, you have to ask that question. It's obvious I got to talk about that. Right? Did you think I was going to just ask the question and let you go home? That's not fair. You know? So, how do we begin to understand Chanuka? Okay. It all starts, like I said, with the concept of the spiritual necessity. But in order to understand the spiritual necessity, you have to understand some aspect of the spiritual world. In the Torah, in the beginning, by Bereshis, it says, Bereshis bara Elokim, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. And then it says that the earth, Haaretz Yisrael, was unformed, it was empty, there was darkness on the face of the deep. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. And there was morning, there was evening and morning, Yom Echad, one day. Rashi asks, it should say Yom Rishon, the first day. There are two types of numbers. There are ordinal numbers, which is first, second, third, fourth, which indicate order, and cardinal numbers, 1, 2, 3, and 4, which indicates, quantity. So therefore, every other day it says Yom Sheni, Yom Shlishi, the second day, the third day, which is an ordinal number. Whereas in the first day it says what? Yom Echad, one day. It should have said Yom Rishon, the first day. But it doesn't say that. The question is, why not? So Rashi answers, because on that day, it was one day, or the day of one, which means that the only living being was God. There were no angels created until the second day. So therefore, there was only one living being, which is God, and therefore, to indicate that, it says Yom Echad, the day of one. That's why it says that. This is what Rashi says. It's a famous question, and this is what Rashi gives as an answer. However,
what you said last week, that
what was that?
that was pure existence.
No, that goes even before. Because that's the Ein Sof, which is before the
That was
time.
before this.
Yeah. Now, that's one idea which Rashi brings. However, there is another thought. There's another way of looking at Yom Echad, one day or the day of one, and that is that you could say that it's not so much that the only being that existed on that day was God and the only living being. You could say that the real emphasis of Yom Echad is that even though there was everything else and God, but you could see how everything emanates from God. So in essence, there was only one thing, and everything else was an emanation. So Yom Echad is the day of the one, which means not only that he was the only one, but that since you could see everything emanate from him, even if there were trillions of things, it still is only one thing, because everything ultimately emanates from God. There was no separation between him and that which emanates from him.
How do you know that this
Whereas
is
on the second day, there was a cloak, there was a separation, where you no longer could see the source of existence of all beings as God. It was separate then.
But how do you know this is true? I mean, this is quite a difference.
Between,
There's quite a difference between if just there is nothing else, or there is something else, just we see the emanation.
yes,
It's a big difference. We have to know this is true.
yes, it is true. It's a text. That Yom Echad really means a day of one, which means that it's not so much the fact, like I said, the emphasis, well, what? The emphasis is what? It's not so much that there was only one living being. Another idea is that there could have been many living beings, but that's not the point. Like I said, the point is that there was the day Yom Echad, the day of the one, that everything you could see the source of existence for everything, God. And therefore, it was the day of one, because everything comes from him.
But that could have been the
that's
second
Yom
day
Echad.
also, right?
What was that?
That could have been the second day as well, right?
No, the second day, there was a Havdalah, separation, that you no longer saw the existence, how they all emanate from God. See, this is what we have today. Anyway.
Wouldn't the darkness have sort of been a mass?
Wait, forget that. Let's go on, okay? Now, so it's a day of one. Therefore, what did God say? Vayom Elokim Yehiyo, let there be light. And that light is what? That light was the ability to perceive that everything emanates from God. That's what the Or really is. That Or, by the way, is called the Or Rishon, the first light, or the Or Hagonas. the concealed light. Okay. So therefore, it's not that so much a light, it's a perception. Light is a metaphor for perception. You understand? So when it says, and there was Yom Rishon, and there was let there be light, but God said, let there be a perception of who I really am vis-a-vis the entire creation, that everything emanates from me.
If there was
Okay?
if there's no block to the perception in the first place, why would he have to say let there be a perception?
Well, because everything has to be issued as a command. Everything has to be issued as a
So in the
command.
beginning it was like nothing.
In the beginning,
He created stuff, let's say. And how can if there is nothing there to block the perception, then how can you, why is it never needed? In other words, Hashem is present as the source of everything. Why do you now need to pronounce it? Why did he need to?
So what I'm just saying is that was the importance of that first day. Is there a napkin? That was the importance of the first day. What is that? Oh, wow. I'm going to say this in the shir at the same time. That is the question. In any case, so therefore, when it says, let there be light, that is, that light is the perception of that everything emanates from God. That, like I say, is called the Opnimi, the Or Hagonas, the Or Rishon. So therefore, there was a time when everything was perceived to emanate from God. The question that we have to ask is, what is that? When would that light come? It was on the first day, you know? When do we get that light back? In order to understand that, you need to go to the end of the Torah. You need to go to the end of the Torah. In the end of the Torah, V'zois HaBrocha, Moshe Rabbeinu is blessing Klal Yisrael. And in the Bracha of Yosef, this is a very interesting statement. He says, B'chol shoyroi hodoloi. The firstborn of his ox, he's referring to the tribe of Yosef. Hodoloi, beauty is his. Okay? V'kani re'em kaunov. Okay, the firstborn of his ox. And the horns of this ox is the horns of a re'em, which was a mythical animal which disappeared. So therefore, the firstborn of his ox, and the ox is Yosef, because he's represented by a shor, an ox. Okay? B'chol shoyroi, the firstborn of this ox is Yosef, hodoloi, beauty is his. Okay? Beautiful. Ox. The kani re'em kaunov, and the horns of this ox is the horns of a re'em, not the horns of an ox. Because the horns of an ox are short and stout, very strong. The horns of a re'em is magnificent. You would say horns of antlers, beautiful symmetry, beautiful to look at. So the horns of the re'em is the horns of this ox. What's he going to do with it? Then he says, Ubehem, and with these horns, Ami min nagach. He's going to gore the nations. Interesting. Now, clearly, what is this? It has to be some type of a metaphor. I mean, obviously, Yosef had no horns. You know, he doesn't have horns, that's for sure. Certainly doesn't have the horns of Re'em. So the real question is, what are we really talking about here? So therefore we must say What do you have, plate? Let me just have one. So we must say, therefore, that it's really a metaphor. Hope you people don't mind if I eat. Like this one, I'll enjoy the soup with you guys. You know what I'm saying? Eliezer, want to give me some more of those?
Oh, this?
More latkes.
Okay, okay.
You get me? Give me a couple?
Ah,
Thanks.
How many?
Couple.
Hey, no, Bill.
2, 3.
We have 3. One latke for each candle, huh? So clearly this has to be some type of an allegory or a metaphor. Okay? So what is it? Oh. So this posik, thank you, refers to the Mashiach. It refers to the Mashiach ben Yosef. So, B'chol Shoroi, the firstborn of his ox is Yosef, but the firstborn is the Mashiach. Mashiach ben Yosef. Okay? I'm now interpreting this pasuk in a completely different way. That's number 1. Number 2.
Why firstborn?
Why what?
Why firstborn?
It's the highest neshama. Doesn't mean the first literally, although Mashiach ben Yosef was the firstborn, means he preceded the whole creation. The neshama of the Mashiach precedes everything. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, so it's the Mashiach. And then it says, V'kani re'em hodoloi, beauty is his. Mashiach ben Yosef is beautiful to look at. Magnificent. What's beautiful to look at? His horns. V'kani re'em kauno. The horns of Mashiach ben Yosef is the horns of a re'em as opposed to the horns of an ox. Now the last one who made that mistake was Michelangelo. There's a statue of Moshe Rabbeinu in the Sistine Chapel, or it's made Stamza in Italy, you know, in Florence. And he interpreted the term where it says Kikoran or. Karen means a horn. So that Moshe Rabbeinu has horns, which of course is absurd, means beams of light. So in any case, they put the statue of Moshe Rabbeinu Is there anybody in the other room?
No.
No?
No.
Would you be able to go in the other room? Is that okay? Would you feel insulted? What? You're not sure?
Not sure.
Okay, you want to sit further back? Thank you. That would be better.
That's a compromise.
Exactly. Anyway, so it says that the horns of this ox is the horns of a ram, or the horns of Mashiach ben Yosef is the horns of a ram. Like I told you, the horns of an ox is short and stout, but the horns of a ram is magnificent. What does that mean that Mashiach ben Yosef has horns? It doesn't. Ask yourself this. Where do the horns emanate from? The head, right? What are the horns used for? For defense. They're weapons. So what the metaphor is saying is that the weapons of the Mashiach ben Yosef emanates from his head. Just like the weapons of a ox or ram emanates from its head. What emanates from the head? Other than hair.
Seichel.
Who?
Seichel.
Seichel. Intelligence. Knowledge. So what the pasuk is revealing. Who?
No,
No, it's a metaphor. Get to the metaphor. No, we left the pshat, you know. It's an allegory or metaphor that refers to something else. What it refers to, like again, the firstborn of the ox, Mashiach ben Yosef, right? We're no longer talking about oxen, we're talking about Yosef, the shevet of Yosef, the ox, the firstborn of Mashiach ben Yosef, right? His horns are not the horns of an ox, but the horns of a re'em. And I said, the horns emanate from the head, correct? And they are used for weapons. Therefore, the weapons of the Mashiach ben Yosef also emanates from his head. What is that? Chokhmah. Unbelievable wisdom. Okay? So therefore, the way the Mashiach ben Yosef is going to conquer, and then it says, Ubehem am yanagach. And with these horns, he goes the nations. With this chokhmah, he will go the nations. Got that? You know, it's the way the Mashiach ben Yosef brings the redemption is with the incredible chokhmah. That is the way he does it. He doesn't go to war, lo b'koichi, what the Rambam says. The Mashiach does not go to war, not ben Yosef anyway. He doesn't fight. We're not talking about a military battle. We are talking about that he displays a wisdom which is so startling and so stunning that he's able to change the nations of the world. That is the Gula. Yashikoyach. Who? Yankee? Thank you. Oh, okay. But it's really excellent, I have to say, This is really where they do Chanuka, Or share at the same time as Latkes, I can tell you. Does she have that? She has good.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, everybody got that? That's a very profound secret. That the weapon of the Mashiach ben Yosef is Chokhmah. Which Chokhmah? It's the Chokhmah that we talked about, the Or Rishon. The Or Rishon, the Or HaPnimi, the Or HaGonos, the Yom Echad, remember that light? Where everything is seen to emanate from God? That is the Or Rishon. That's called the Or Mashiach, the Messianic light. You see? So I've connected the first part of the Torah to the end of the Torah. And what we see is something very, very important. That it is the Chokhmah of the Mashiach ben Yosef that brings the redemption. In other words, he displays a wisdom that is so profound, so startling, that everybody's knocked over.
How do we know which
Perception of God.
Well, what is it? It's a perception that everything emanates from God.
How do we know we're talking about the same light?
I mean, what?
That we're talking about the same light.
No, I'm saying that. That's what it is. Okay? Now, the real question now is, well, what does he show? Well, what is the Or Rishon really? The Or Rishon is really a perception, okay, that the bedrock of everything is a spiritual universe. It means the Kabbalistic universes. And the root of all that is God. What it is, it's a revelation of dimensions of reality. It's like we live in a third dimension, 3 dimensions, and all of a sudden you see a fourth. And you see how that emanates from a fifth. What the Mashiach ben Yosef does, which is very interesting, is he cures the world of the major disease of the world. What is the disease of the world, really? What's the problem that the world has? And this explains why there's evil. You know what I'm saying? Why there's so much argument and evil and so much foreign beliefs, idolatry, etc. Why there are wars. You know what that is? What is the problem the world has? Who? Yeah. But let me, the what?
Hashem is hidden. So they're not
The
visible.
problem that the world has is ignorance. They are ignorant of the true reality. And because of that, they have no idea who the Jews are. So there's enormous anti-Semitism. Every person thinks he's somebody, and they're after power, right? Conquest, and so on. This is what the world wants. Because they lie, they don't understand the real reality. Ignorance is the disease of the planet. What the Mashiach ben Yosef does is he removes the ignorance. Another way of looking at it is we live in a fog. And every once in a while there's a little patch of fog that clears up so you can see something. And then it comes back again. But basically we walk around in a fog. The fog conceals reality. And that's one of the reasons why there's so much things wrong with this world, where people think they're somebody. Because they don't see the reality of Einod Milvadoi, and so on. In any case, so the job of the Mashiach ben Yosef, which is very important, is he doesn't go to war. We're not talking about atom bombs. We're not talking about Iron Dome, whatever. We're not talking about any of this stuff. We're talking about a man that reveals realities.
How can I do it? You show the movie? I mean, what's the way to do it?
Wait. Go slow. Everybody understand what's involved? The redemption isn't so much a political redemption, where the nations of the world won't persecute the Jews. Okay, what it is, the redemption itself is a redemption from ignorance. It's a freedom from darkness, more than it's a freedom from persecution. Of course, once there's a freedom from darkness, there will be no more persecutions. Why will the wolf dwell with the lamb? All of a sudden, there's no Yetzer Hara, because everything is exposed. There's no softness for Yetzer Hara. There's no evil, and so on. There's no arrogance. It's all gone. And that's why all the nations will no longer practice war. For what? In any case, this all lies in the hands of the Mashiach ben Yosef. Interesting job. And that's the metaphor. Therefore, Kani Re'em, but the question is, what is this magnificent information that the Mashiach ben Yosef does? And you know what the answer is? Something very interesting, which many people do not realize. All information has two aspects to it, called the Chomer and the Tzura. What is the information? But most of the information that we see is what? It's fragmented. It's disconnected. You see a little idea here, a little idea here, but we fail to put them together. We don't see the structure. We don't see the organization. When you see things which are fragmented or disconnected or disparate, when they put it together, what is that? It's called beauty. What is the definition of beauty, really? What is beauty? What is beauty? Beauty is the blending or the harmonious integration of things which are separate or look separate or fragmented. For instance, you look at a painting. Painting is beautiful. Why? Because all the parts are integrated as one. The color, the shapes, the texture, it's all one look. You're not looking at different parts of the picture. It's one manifestation. That's beauty. Music. Beethoven. Wrote a lot of phenomenal music. But when you think about it, Beethoven's concerts or symphonies is nothing more than a bunch of notes. If you look at the Fifth, one of the most famous symphonies ever written, just a bunch of notes. That's all it is, a couple hundred pages, And what's a note? The note is nothing more than a sound frequency. So if you took the notes and separated them, what would they be? But when you put them together as a melody, then it's the harmony, the counterpoint, it's incredible. But what's the difference between this as notes and this as a symphony? The structure, the organization, the connection. That's it. We live in a world where everything is disconnected. We don't see the blending, the connection, the dots connected. Everything is a fragment. Our whole Torah is really fragmented, if you really think about that. I don't get into that now. You know what I'm saying? Everything is fragmented. The whole purpose of Chokhmah is to discover what is and what's the connection to everything else. You see, that's the Opnimi. That's what the Mashiach ben Yosef does, and that's beautiful. Therefore, his horns are not the horns of an ox, which is short and stout. It is the horns of a re'em, which is magnificent, and that's a metaphor for beauty. You see, Hodoloi, beauty is his. Very important idea. The beauty is the tzura of the information, not merely the chomer, the information itself. That's what he brings. And he connects everything together. The physical universe connects it to the spiritual universe, and he connects that to the Inyan Mubadad, the Insight. He connects that to God. This in what Ben Yosef does.
He wants to
And
do
that is the Or Rishon. That's the perception of the first day.
only Tzura, he wants to introduce new Chomer.
What was that?
He won't need to introduce new Chomer. We know all the Chomer, it's only Tzura.
No. He'll certainly introduce Nechomer, that's for sure. You see. But the beauty of what he does is not just Nechomer, more facts. No. It's where everything that he does present and everything that we had is all connected into a magnificent structure. It's really a symphony. It's what it is. You know what I'm saying? That's the best way to look at it. It's really, you ever see a PowerPoint presentation? A real one where everything's connected? It's really what it is. That's what he does.
That's what the
That's his-
calls the Gilui Yechidot. Right? Always Ramchal talks about
Gili Yechude,
Gilui Yechidot.
well, in a sense, yes, yeah. But in fact, if you learn the Hakdama to Derech Hashem, that's
It's all
the
about thinking, you know.
that's the Derech Hashem. The method of the Ramchal is this. What it is. It's the ability to connect everything
Called
together.
Hanhogas HaYichud, right?
What?
That's one he calls it Hanhogas HaYichud. Hanhogas HaMishpat and Hanhogas HaYichud.
No, that's different. Although, no, that's a different
That
concept.
leads to the Geula, the Yichud.
Well, yeah, but it's not the same concept. It's a different concept, yeah. But anyway,
So Bahem Amin Minagach, he's going to show this to the nations.
oh, yeah. With this chokhmah, the weapons of the head, chokhmah, but the chokhmah of Hidur, Hodoloi is the classic, right? He's going to go to the nations. That's how he shows everybody. You know, if you ask yourself, what's the greatest phenomenon that has changed the world in the last 500 years? What is it?
Technology.
Exactly. It's science and technology. It's changed. And what is science and technology? It's chokhmah. That's all it is. You know what I'm saying? It's chokhmah. That's all it is. Yet, science. What is science and technology? What is it, really? Because what science was machadish is that we look outside and we see thousands of different phenomenon or phenomena, right? Disconnected. Along comes science and says, wait, let me explain what this phenomenon is and how it's connected to everything else. So what science does, it reduces all information to common ideas, a couple of principles.
It's beauty in Gashmis.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's beauty in Gashmias. E equals MC squared.
But why
Right?
Why would they
Einstein's equation is magnificent because it connected two different things, energy and matter. And it said that they're really one idea, one substance. You know, Maxwell's equations for the electromagnetic spectrum is magnificent. It's one of the greatest discoveries of all, where he said there's no such thing as just a... Because people said, well, there's a light wave, and there's a radio wave, there's an X-ray. They're all different things. He said, no. They're all one thing called electromagnetic radiation. The difference between them is frequency. That's all. And he created 4 equations which revolutionized physics.
Why?
What was that called? Connecting the dots. But he did it in the physical universe. The Mashiach does it to the physical universe and to the spiritual universe, and it's all connected. So just like science and technology shook up the planet, did. Our whole civilization changed. The Chochmah of the Or Mashiach, which is the Mashiach ben Yosef, will shake up the planet. That's the Soid. And that's a metaphor of B'chol Shorei Hodoloi. It's mamash the metaphor, and that's the original Yom Echad. Got it? Okay.
But at the same time,
We needed to know that because we haven't yet touched Chanuka.
But at the same time, with the preponderance of technology,
What was that?
with the preponderance of technology, you find that the decadence is so much more deeper and
Yeah.
more profound.
Yes, but I'm not going into that. That's because, you know why?
Because he's fighting.
Who?
Because the Yetzer Hara is fighting.
No.
Because it's
What
more
you're
of an
saying is
eich,
true. Why?
it's more of an eichus and kedusha, so it's more of an eichus and
No.
tumah.
No.
It increases the selfishness and the ego.
Okay, well,
Gaiva, it makes
It's only Gashmi, it's not spiritual.
but
No.
the most science
Because if I know what something is,
control.
and I can control it, and I can predict, right? What happens? I become omnipotent. I get delusions of omnipotence. I think I'm somebody. You see, the more control you give somebody, the greater is his ego. He has problems with his ego. That's the problem. When a man feels helpless,
So it's a
he's willing to admit
two-edged
there's a God. But as soon as he makes $1 billion, you know what I'm saying? As soon as he's the master of the physical world, forget it.
So it's the same
You
with
can't even stay in the
technology.
same room with this guy.
So
You know how many
technology is
scientists are
two-edged sword.
egomaniacs? What?
I'm saying the technology is a two-edged sword.
Who?
Technology itself is a two-edged sword. For me.
Exactly. Exactly. One side of the sword is Neflos Haibore. You know what I'm saying?
Unifying.
Which is incredible. You look at how an infant develops from 2 cells into 100 trillion cells is beyond comprehension. What kind of mechanisms are we dealing with? Who put this here? You know? So that's Neflos Haibore on one side. On the other side, well, we can give birth. We know exactly how to control, how to kill the... It all depends on which way you want to go. You know what I'm saying? It's a two-edged sword. But... the key idea here is that it allows for arrogance, gaiva. That's the problem. Listen, okay, anyway.
So how does what Mashiach reveal, how it's going to be different from Gaiva point of view? It's going to be even more Gaiva, no?
Soda.
Right.
Oh, please fill it up.
So would you say the last
Okay, we are
500
now ready for Chanuka. You need to know this first.
Would you say the last 500 years was a hakdama or a preparation for more of the chachma that's going to come by Mashiach?
Correct, exactly. That's really what it is. But I don't want to get into that. I want to get to Chanuka.
Because it's an explosion. In the last thousands of years, they didn't have any of this.
It used to be that the acquisition of knowledge remained static for thousands of years. You see, Aristotle kept science back for thousands of years, believe it or not, you know? Okay, then along came Roger Bacon in 1240, and he said, this is not the way to go. You need experiments, you see? So what he did is he began the scientific method, and science changed. Then it grew and advanced and so on and so forth. And so therefore now science came out of being stagnant. The growth was arithmetic. 2 plus 2. But after Newton, it became geometric. 2 times 2. And after World War II, it became exponential. 2 to the power of 2. Which is all, by the way, 4 anyway, so. Bad example. But anyway, you get it. You know, the proliferation of information today is exponential. Truly exponential. Nobody could believe the amount of chokhmah going on. But anyway, I don't get into that. Now, let's go back. Let's go back now to Matan Torah. It says by Behaloischa, right? It said that the Roshim appeared to Aaron, and he told him that that Aaron should light the menorah. So what does that mean? So Rashi brings down that Aaron had tremendous chalisha sadas. He felt terrible. Why? Because the Jews did the chet of the golden calf, right? And Aaron contributed to it. He made them the calf. So he did a terrible thing. If not for the intervention of Moshe Rabbeinu, it would have been unfortunately bad news for Aaron HaKohen. So Aaron felt terrible. Okay, and not only that, but after the Nesiim brought their korbanos and whatever by the dedication of the base of the Mishkan, he was not asked to bring anything. So he attributed that to the fact that he sinned terrible, and God did not forgive him. So God said, no, it's not true. Okay, I forgave you, and to show you, you will light the menorah in the Beis Hamikdash. Okay, you light the menorah in the Beis Hamikdash, and not only that, but your lighting the menorah in the Beis Hamikdash will continue till the end of all generations. Whereas the korbanos, the sacrifices, they will terminate after the destruction of the temple. So the Ramban over there says, what do you mean it'll continue to the end of all generations? When the temple was destroyed, that was the end of the lighting the menorah too. So the Ramban says, incredibly, that it refers to Chanuka. And who is Matisyoy? Koyam. Means your descendants will continue the lighting of the menorah through Chanuka until all generations. So the question is, what's going on here? What do you mean Chanuka? And what was the real chalisha of Aaron HaKohen? And the answer is a very important concept. The Jews, Adam HaRishon before the Chet, he was supposed to bring the Mashiach. In fact, he was the Mashiach. And he was given one test, the tree, where God said, do not eat from the tree. Right? And along comes a Nachash, he talks to Chav and whatever, and says, you see that tree? Really that tree, right, is the master of the universe. God ate from that tree, Rashi says, and he became God. That's how he can boire lamas. You want to also be boire lamas? Eat from the tree. You see? Now, Adam and Chava were supposed to understand that this is not true. That tree is an illusion of mastery. Really, God has nothing to do with the tree. You see, but Adam and Chava bought the argument, okay? And that argument they should not have done, or that temptation. Why? Because had Adam not eaten from the tree, he would have been Mashiach. If he would have been Mashiach, he would have been Zoichet to what? The Orishim. And he would have realized right then and there the perception that the tree is nothing. He would have seen the Opnimi. Therefore, he was tested. What is the Opnimi? It's a greater understanding of God. Therefore, you must be tested on a theological problem. Is God the master of the universe, or is it tree? It's a problem in theology. What do you believe about God? What do you believe about the nature of God? It's a philosophy test. Why? Because the test was that the tree is impotent, there's nothing there. And that would have therefore said, okay, because you believed that the tree is nothing there, that God is the koyach, right? Therefore you'll be zoich to see that koyach. You will merit to see that koyach. So it's a midah keneged midah. He was given the exact test that he needed to have, and the opposite of that would have been to become Mashiach with the Orishim, the Or Hagonas. Got it? Klal Yisrael, when they stood at Har Sinai, they were equal to Adam Rishon before the Chet. Gemara says that. Nifseko Zeyma Shel Nochosh. Without getting into the whole parsha, okay? Which is incredible. That means Klal Yisrael was not normal. They were not the way we are. Klal Yisrael, without getting into the whole thing, was equal to Adam Rishon before the sin. Therefore, they had one more test to do, which is what? It's a test of theology. Same thing. Because had they done that, then the Luchas Rishonis, the first tablets that Moshe Rabbeinu brought down, was the Or Rishon. That was the Or Mashiach. They had one test. What kind of a test would that be? A theological test. Right? What was that? The ego. Do you believe that God needs an intermediary, or that there is an intermediary? Or God is such a being that he cannot be represented by anything? I say again, it's a theological test. They failed. Right? Therefore, what Aaron realized is that his contribution to the Chet destroyed the ability of Moshe Rabbeinu to be the Mashiach ben Yosef, and therefore the Mashiach cannot come. Now, imagine a guy does a Chet. Say, I did a Chet, right? But imagine you walk over to the guy and say, you know, Mashiach could have come if not for your Chet. What do you think this guy's going to feel? What a guilt trip to lay at his door, right? That's exactly what happened. So therefore, the Chalish of Aaron wasn't I just did a sin of the golden calf. No, that was supposed to be the last test. And had it worked, then Moshe Rabbeinu would have been Mashiach ben Yosef, because that's really who he was. You see, so the Chalisha is that he destroyed the ability of Klal Yisrael to get Mashiach.
But he wasn't Ben Yosef.
You what?
He wasn't Ben Yosef.
Who?
Moshe Rabbeinu.
He was.
He was Ben Levi.
Doesn't make a difference. Ben Yosef can be from any tribe. Only Ben David has to be from Yehuda.
Who says that? Chal says that?
Yeah, I mean that's what it is. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu, Mashiach ben Yosef, and many people were Mashiach. Ephraim, Yerubim ben Nevat was Mashiach ben Yosef.
Yeah, but Ephraim is nice.
Yeah, but you don't have to be. Yerubim was ben Yosef, yeah.
What's it?
Ezra was Mashiach ben Yosef. In fact, had the Jews come back from Eretz Yisrael with Ezra, he would have Mashiach ben Yosef. That's why it says, Roishi Tenos and Torah Yoda, that Torah could have been given to Ezra, because he was Mashiach. See, like Moshe Rabbeinu. Anyway.
Rizal says that Ezra was Mashiach ben Yosef. Who says that?
Ezra was the Goyal. Rashi says.
Yeah, but who says he was Mashiach ben Yosef?
Because only a Mashiach can redeem them.
It's not that the Ramchal or
No, I don't recall if he says that. But only a Mashiach can redeem Klal Yisrael. A Gula cannot go. Rashi brings that down. By Yecheskel Mem Gimel, where he says, because it says in Oz Yoshia twice, that there were two comings. Just like the first coming was could have been messianic, then the second coming, be a Shnia also, so therefore Ezra would have been the Goyal. How? Because he's Mashiach ben Yosef. Mashiach ben Yosef does not have to be from Yosef. Doesn't have to be. Because it's a job, he's an educator. Mashiach ben Yosef is a redeemer from era, from education, whereas Ben David is a Mashiach of Shlita, Malchus. That has to go through lineage, yeah. Anyway. Therefore, Aaron had this tremendous chalisha. Terrible. Because of him, Mashiach doesn't come. You could believe that? What he felt? So that's when the Bereshim came to him and said, listen, don't worry. I'm going to give. So therefore, it came out that the Jews failed. In what way? The Jews failed to receive or to accept the Opnimi. You see. They failed. Just like when they said Nasiv and Nishma. So they said that therefore they received the Torah, right? Bi'avo, but they failed to accept the Opnimi, the Hasaga, which is also Torah, and therefore that spiritual necessity that they should have been Makabal, all of the Torah, including the origin of the Torah, that was a failure, a spiritual necessity that they failed. And that needed a tikkun. You see. So the Bereshim said to Aaron HaKohen, don't worry. Your light that you light, which represents what we'll see, the origin, that will shine for all generations, which means that one of your descendants is going to give Klal Yisrael another shot at the Opnimi. You see. Now, where do we see that? We now understand that the spiritual deficiency failed, that they should have received 3 Torahs. Torah Shebeksav, Torah Shebal Peh, which they did not receive, the Ava, and that's the whole story of Purim. We're not getting into Purim. And they did not receive also, in other words, they were not masakin or received the whole concept of the origin, that God is the only being, and there is no intermediaries. They failed. Therefore, God had to set up another historical event where they could do the tikkun. What?
It's not the Chelek of Torah, there are 3 Chelokim to Torah?
Yeah. Although the third chelik is part of the second chelik. The chelik of Pnimi is part of Torah Shebal Peh, although it's concealed within it. So there are really 3 aspects.
Where is that? Soy?
Sorry, yeah. Anyway. So, wait a minute. What do you mean to set up the Jews for another chance? What does that mean? Okay. So here's what the Bereshim does. There's a medrash that says the following. It says, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth was unformed and void. Tohu voyu choshech tahoim. So the medrash says that all 4 expressions, tohu, which means confusion or mixture, voyu means emptiness, the choshech apnei sahoim, and darkness on the face of the deep, choshech and the word tahoim, all these 4 words refer to the 4 kingdoms that will subjugate the Jews. Babylon, Persia, or rather Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome. How does the Torah refer to as Greece? Choshech, darkness. Because darkness is the 3rd word. Therefore, the word that refers to Greece is darkness. But that's astounding. How can Greece be darkness? Greece is the nation that enlightened the entire world. The whole modern civilization comes from Greece. So how can you call Greece darkness? That's the question. And the answer is, because it doesn't mean darkness. It means darkness as opposed to light. When the Torah introduced the word choshech, and there was darkness on the face of the deep, the choshech hapnei sahoim, and there was darkness on the face of the deep. And then God said, let there be light. What was that light? Remember what I said? That was the orishim. Therefore, the darkness is what's called the choshech rishon. It's not the absence of light, it's an alternative to the light. which is a difference. If the or, let there be light, refers to the messianic light, which is the perception that what? That there's God, who everything boils down to God, then the darkness, it means what? It's an alternative explanation of reality, not the Orishan's explanation of reality, you see. Therefore, Greece is called darkness, not because there's an absence of Chokhmah, because what Greece did is they provided an alternative Chokhmah explanation than the Orishan. That's why it's referred to as darkness. What is that alternative? Because what the Greeks said was this, is that, of course, everything has ultimate causes, but the ultimate cause of the physical universe is physical, not spiritual. Greece stands for the ultimate understanding of the physical universe, science. All the scientists realize ultimately that all physical phenomena can be explained through other physical phenomena. One is a cause and the other is effect. They don't look at ruchnius. There's no such thing as Kabbalah by the Greeks. There's no such thing as a spiritual dimension. It's all physical. So therefore the pnimi of the physical universe is not spiritual, which is what the Orishan says, it is physical. You see the difference. And therefore they are referred to as the darkness, because they are an alternative to the light.
The Greeks were science.
What?
You mentioned earlier that Aristotle put science back thousands of years.
Yeah.
They weren't that scientific.
Well, they really were, but because everybody believed in Aristotle, nobody did any experiments. So his stuff stood. It was science, but the problem was wrong science.
Wrong science. That's it.
But it was science.
When today's science, you get to a certain point where you stop, let's say, beyond the atom. You break everything down like less to that point, and then they don't have answers. And they'll admit that.
Aristotle in philosophy, he was an incredible scientist. The problem was they never did any experiments, so they were wrong many times. And that's what happened when Roger Bacon broke away from all that. He says, you got to test everything. Anyway, but fundamentally the Greeks were a nation that believed in what? That believed in that the physical explanation of the universe is physical. There is no such thing as a spiritual universe. Forget it. And that's the concept of Hellenization.
What do they have
ultimately.
Pantheon?
What was that?
What about the pantheon?
The gods?
Yeah.
Yeah, they
So-
believed in gods.
So it's like even if it was made.
Did you ever notice what those gods were? They're doing the exact same thing as everybody else. Running around, having a great time. They believe in their gods don't look too spiritual, we tell you now.
They were taught what? I mean,
Their gods don't look too
I
spiritual.
know that it wasn't that spiritual. They were basically superheroes, but they had some sort of like on top of the Mount Zeus and.
Their gods were superior, but not spiritual. There's a big difference. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you take a look what Zeus did. He's going running around, checking out the women. I gotta tell you, so, I mean, they were just big guys, superheroes, but this is not spirituality. You know what I'm saying? So what you did is you prayed to a hero. You prayed to a superhuman. That's what you prayed to. You didn't pray to, God and whatever. Anyway. So what does the Rosham do? An incredible thing. He allows Alexander to conquer the entire world, which is incredible. Alexander conquers the entire world and he dies at 33 years old. Why? Because what the Rosham wanted to do, interesting, is to pit Klal Yisrael, their belief system, against the belief system of the Greeks. So therefore he had Alexander conquer the entire world, Judea, everything. Because now, and they want to Hellenize everybody. So now what are the Jews going to do? Are they going to accept the Greek belief system, that fundamentally everything is physical? Or are they going to fight them and say, no, we believe in Ruchnius. We believe that there is a God, there is a spiritual domain, and that's what runs everything. It's really two belief systems opposing each other. That's why. Why would God do that? So what he did is he allowed the Choshech, the alternative system of the Greeks, to overrule the Jews. And let's see what the Jews do. And what did the Jews do? They fought. So because they fought, they were makabel, the opnimi, the fact that the Rosham runs everything, okay, and that is the only explanation, and therefore they were masakin, the pagam, the damage that they did by Matan Torah. You see, and that's what Rosham said to Aaron HaKohen, that your light, somebody, your descendant, will rectify the damage that they did by not accepting through the ego, the chet ego, the whole concept of the opnimi. Interesting. So therefore, the Jews at that time rectified it. Now it's interesting when you think about that. Now that we have that framework, we have that perspective, you begin to see many things.
But even in that rectification,
What?
There was a corruption even in the rectification.
Wait, let's go slow. Let me just.
The Gula should have came.
Oh.
Rectified it.
I gotta get there.
You see what
Give me
happened
a
to
chance.
Hashmonai?
All right, guys, give me a chance. First you have to lay the groundwork.
Yeah.
Let's get to the point where we now understand that Chanuka is a setup to masakan the pagam of the Orishan, the pagam of the Cheto Ego, which is what the Ramban means by Chanuka, that don't be dismayed, their stuff will disappear, your stuff will go on till Mashiach.
But that's also really what you said earlier. It's a hard telling Adam it's not spiritual, it's just a tree.
Yes.
Just everything is there. God, he's not. He ate from this tree.
So it's a test of philosophy, of God, of theology. It's really ultimately what it is.
It's all physical. It's a tree, and there's no super.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Now, there are several things we can understand. Right with me? Several things we can understand. The problem was that the Jews didn't know that they were masakin. They didn't know they rectified it. You see, how would they know? They didn't know this whole concept of the war between the Jews and the Greeks was really a war of rejection of what? Of a false ideology, a belief system. So therefore God sent them a message. God sent them a message. You still got some soda left there?
There's a whole thing of ginger ale.
That's okay. The Boshim sent them a message. What was the message? Remember, there was no Western Union in those days. There was certainly no email. What did Boshim do? Well, he sent them a message to tell them, by the way, here's what you guys did. What was the message?
That was
The menorah. But how? How is the menorah a message to Klal Yisrael? And the answer is, it's the perfect telegram. Why?
Oh, it's Keneged Teva.
Because the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash represents the Or Pnimi. That's really what it represents. The light of the candelabra, the menorah, represents the Or Rishon. That's what it represents. Okay? 7, right? Connected the 7 spheres, from Chesed to Malchus and so on. That's what it represents. That there's an Or Pnimi to all this. So what the Boshim did is he caused a miracle to occur in the very instrument which is the representation of the Or Pnimi, of the Or Mashiach. Because that Or Mashiach, or that menorah, was extinguished, and what happened? It was relit. So what the Boshim did is, there was a miracle that relit the menorah, you see. And therefore the Jews realized that if the miracle occurred to the menorah and not to something else, that has to be a message about the menorah itself. And if the menorah represents the Or Pnimi, that means we rekindled the Or Pnimi. That's how they knew, you see. Because the menorah was really something that happened 3 years after the war was over. I don't know if you realize that. It happened much later. Yet the central feature of what? Of Chanuka is the menorah. It's not even the victorious battle. You know how many Jews there were that fought against how many Greeks? There were 10,000 Jews. There's over 100,000 Greeks. It's miraculous that they won the war. How did 10,000 Jews win against 100,000 Greeks? Incredible. Yet, we don't celebrate that really. We celebrate the menorah because the menorah represents the tikkun of the Orishim.
How did they do the tikkun? What's the effect?
Wait, because they opposed the Greeks. That was the tikkun.
It was military opposition.
Destroyed Helen.
Yeah, no, but it doesn't make a difference. They fought the Greeks for what? It wasn't that because they wanted liberty. Don't impose your value system, your belief system on us. That's really what it was. It was a fight about ideology. Really, the Greeks didn't want to enslave the Jews. No, this is what I'm talking about. Haman, that the Greeks wanted to kill the Jews. No, the Greeks just wanted to Hellenize. They wanted to impose their culture on the Jews. But the Jews could live as free men. They're not interested in enslaving the Jews. You know what I'm saying?
In the world,
Yeah.
was that the end of the Hellenistic era?
No.
The Hellenism continued in the rest of the world.
Well, ultimately, Hellenism was taken over by Rome. Rome became Hellenistic. It's really what the Roman civilization is all about, and they spread it throughout the planet.
So
The
then
Greeks
they didn't
created the
destroy
ideology.
Hellenism.
What was that?
So there wasn't another destruction in the world of the concept of Hellenism.
The world became Hellenistic, became modern.
I'm saying, so the tikkun that the Yidden did was only as far as themselves was concerned.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Mitzad dem Ruchnis, what
Had
they had to be
nothing-
makabel the Torah, makabel even that chelik of the Torah, and by fighting the Greeks, that's what they did. Ultimately, they turned all the Jews around. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there were some Jews that became Greeks, true, but they turned it around, and therefore, Yehuda Maccabee, the Maccabees, the Chashmonaim, they became the rulers of Israel. And Jews reasserted themselves to Judaism.
3 years. You said that's historical.
Yeah, it's historical. Yeah, most people think it happened right away. It didn't.
Why?
Because it took 3 years to do the war, to finally to rededicate the temple took 3 years. From the start of the war, it took 3 years. But anyway,
Also, they were fighting battles, not
Yeah.
they were sitting around after the war.
no, they were not, no.
Just
No.
3 years
Yeah,
and
exactly. Until they started the war and so on. But anyway, the main idea is that the menorah is the very instrument that represents the Opnimi. And that was relit, and that's the tikkun of the Opnimi. The Jews had successfully done that. But not only that, the miracle of Chanukah itself is a midah keneged midah of that idea. Look, 10,000 Jews fight 100,000 Greeks. Imagine if you would walk over to a Greek general and say, listen, we got 10,000 guys, you guys are over 100,000. Do you think we can be successful? So the Greek general would say, what, are you crazy? You guys don't have a chance. So you answer the guy, but you don't understand something, general. You're right. If the physical world was run by physical principles, you're right. But it's not run, it's run by God. And God decides who the victory is. You see, it's not a physical, military battles are not won by physical strategies. They're won by the decree of the Rebbeinu Shalom. So therefore, midah keneged midah, you testify that you believe I'm the one that gives victory, you will get the victory. Same thing. If you would walk over to a Greek scientist and say, we have 1 day's oil, what do you think? But we need 8 days to get a new fresh supply. You think we should even bother? So the Greek scientists would say, don't bother, it's only 1 day. Because teva is that 1 day's oil will burn for 1 day and that's it. But what does the Opnimi say? That oil burns for 1 day because that's the gzeir of the Rebbeinu Shalom. You see, it's the old story of Chanina ben Dosa. You know that story. Where his daughter came to her father, Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, and she said to him, we have no oil for Shabbos. So he said, well, what's the problem? Just like vinegar. So she said, wait a minute, vinegar doesn't burn. It's not combustible. So Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa said, listen, why do you think oil burns? Is there something in the oil? No. The Rebbeinu said that this arrangement of molecules and atoms will be combustible. There's nothing, we don't understand inherently why this is the arrangement that's combustible. So if he said that oil burns, let's say vinegar burns, and guess what? She lit it burnt the whole Shabbos. Why? Because that's the belief of the Jew, that all of these are nothing more than examples. So therefore, if you went over to a Greek scientist and said, what do you think? He said, well, of course you can't burn it, are you crazy? The physical universe is run by physical science. Principles. But the Jew says, no, I am fighting the ideology, that's the version that runs the world. So like Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, if he wants 1 day to burn 8, it'll burn 8. And therefore, so it comes out that they were zoicha to 2 nisim. The victory, which was connected teva, against nature, and the miracle of the oil, which is also connected because they testified that we believe in the Orishim, which tells us that everything you see does not really have a physical explanation. Although it looks that way, that's the Hester. It's really a spiritual explanation. So there was Zoicha, you see. So it comes out incredible Zach. That Chanukah is nothing more than a chance of the Jews to bring the Tikkun of the Orishim, you see. And that's really what Chanukah is all about.
What do we have to
now,
do today?
wait. You need to address several ideas. Well, why didn't the Mashiach come? That's the question. If they did this Tikkun, just like Chet Egel, if they would have done that, Moshe Rabbeinu would have been Mashiach ben Yosef, so then why didn't the Mashiach come? Right? Not only that, but there's another very interesting thing. There is no Masechta Chanukah. You know that. There's no Gemara, there's no Mishnayos Masechta. That's Chanukah. There's Purim, Megillah, everything has a Masechta. Chanukah doesn't have a Masechta, except the laws of Chanukah are spread all over Shas, Mishnayos. Why? Because it says Rebbe was very angry at the Chashmonoim, because it was forbidden for the Chashmonoim to rule over Israel, because that goes to Judah, Yehuda. You could do it as long as you need to, get everybody back into, stabilized. But once everybody's stabilized, you got to get off the throne, because it says Loisoseh Shevet mi Yehuda, that in Judah will be the Shevet, right? So they did a tremendous chet, the Chashmonoim. So therefore, Rebbe was very angry at them, and therefore he decided he's not going to write a Masechta Chanukah so as not to honor the Chashmonoim, because they would have played a prominent role. So it looks like Rebbe was out for revenge, because Rebbe was from the house of David, from Yehuda, so it looks like personal revenge, a vendetta, as they say. But no, why didn't the Mashiach come? Because here's the problem. The Mashiach comes one of two ways. Either Klal Yisrael is Zoicha, or Klal Yisrael is not Zoicha, but they bring him another way. But the way he comes is Be'itoi. He comes because he must come at the end of time. There's a certain time that he must come, and that's it. The problem is that all the times until now that the Mashiach would come, Klal Yisrael had to be Zoicha. You see? So even by Chanukah, even though they had done the job, they were not Zoicha. Why? You know why? Because the Chashmonoim refused to get off the throne. The problem is that if great men also sin at that time, then Mashiach doesn't come, because that destroys the schus of Klal Yisrael. So since the Chashmonoim didn't get off the throne and allow somebody from Yehuda, Beis Yehuda, to rule, therefore the Mashiach did not come. But they still had done the Tikkun, enormous amount, but not fully. In fact, I say something very interesting, which I realized, okay? Rome fought Carthage, 3 great wars, okay? They're called the Punic Wars. Very famous in history. There were 2 major powers at the time of Chanuka. This was 165 BCE. Before Rome really became a great power and so on, there were 2 world powers. One was Carthage, which is today's Tunisia, and there was Rome. And they both fought. Yeah, Hannibal, you ever have Hannibal and the elephants? He was from Carthage. He went over the mountains. Incredible guy. He went with elephants over the Alps, and that's why it's unbelievable. He's one of the greatest strategists, military strategists. Him and Caesar of all time, Napoleon. Yeah, he took elephants, went over the Alps, he went down into Italy and tried to wipe out the Rome. Well, tremendous general, But anyway, he was from Carthage.
He invented the elephant as a war machine?
I don't know if he invented it, but he certainly used it,
Where was Carthage?
Tunisia.
The northern African continent.
Yeah, it was North Africa. Well, Italy is not far from North Africa.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Anyway, so they had 3 wars. 1, 2, okay? The 3rd Punic War was the decisive battle, okay? And the 3rd Punic War occurred in approximately 148 BCE. It's interesting. Had the Jews done the Tikkun fully, had the Chashmonoim gotten off the throne, then I believe, and Rome destroyed Carthage. They won. They wiped out Carthage. But it's interesting. Rome first became a world power after the miracle of Chanuka. It's almost like if the Jews had done the Tikkun, then Rome would have lost.
How many years after was it?
10 years? Very short time. Because Chanuka was 163 BCE, and the Punic War was 148. What are we looking at? 15 years. So I believe that the Gzera, that Rome should win, and therefore ultimately destroy the Beis Hamikdash. They should become, that's Esav, was because the Yidden, the Jews, failed to capitalize on the Tikkun that they had done. That's my observation of a historical event, which is interesting. But shortly thereafter, Rome became the world power. Very interesting. But anyway.
Somehow, always at the end, he's not ready to bow down to Mashiach ben David. And just
Yeah, something always messes up, yeah.
No, but like, he's not ready to be Machmir to
No.
Mashiach ben David.
That's because Ben Yosef ben David always, the jealousy. Eitz Yosef and Eitz, there's a whole after on that. Well, it goes back to Mitzrayim. Who's the one who sold Joseph? Yehuda. Today's Pasha, right? He's the one that sold Yosef to slavery. That's why there's always a rivalry between Yosef and Yoram ben Avot and Rechavam.
And that's what by the Chashmonaim. According to them, Mashiach ben Yosef, they were from Levi.
Exactly.
They didn't want to bow down
Yehuda.
to Mashiach ben David.
Now, see, now you're singing. Exactly. Now you're seeing the dots connect. Exactly. It's always the problem between Yosef, or whoever represents Yosef. In this case, it was the Levim or the Kohanim, and Yehuda, Beis David, Beis Yehuda, and so on. Exactly, that's the problem, right? They refused to get off, and so on, Ultimately, of course, God destroyed everyone. He destroyed all the Chashmonoim. The last one was, the last Chashmonoi was a girl, Miriam. I think her name was Miriam. The Gemara brings down, So, who was it? I think Herod.
The beginning of Babasya.
Yeah,
Babasya.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So Hurdis, I think he wanted to marry Miriam, so give him his own legitimacy, because he was a slave. His father was an Idumean slave. Asa is, so he wanted to marry Miriam. She says, oh no, he needed legitimacy, so she threw herself off the roof. She committed suicide. So he took her and wanted to preserve her. So he preserved her in honey. He put her in a vat of honey to preserve her, whatever. That's probably the origin of why husbands call their wife honey. But anyway. Okay.
Wouldn't you have to?
Joke.
Wouldn't they have to be in the Madrig of operation? Just like the Yidden by Har Sinai.
Well, we don't know what would have happened after, yeah. If they would have followed out with the Tikkun, then things would have happened, exactly. We don't know.
No, what I'm saying is the Tikkun maybe would only...
Now, where do you see this? Wait, let me wow, it's late. Where do you see this? Yeah, I see a lot of the Muslim to this. First of all, on the dreidel. Nun Gimel Heishin, Nes God L'Hoyasham. Right? Nun Gimel Heishin. You ever see Nun Gimel? Come on, you guys play dreidel once in a while, right? Right? Nun Gimel Heishin is Nes God L'Hoyasham. A great miracle happened there, right? So the Gematria of the Nun, the Gimel, Shin, and the Hey is what? Is 358, which is Gematria Mashiach. That's number one. I once said that, and somebody came over to me and said, wait a minute. This is good in America, but they don't have Nes God L'Hoyasham. They have Nes God L'Hoyapoi. A great miracle happened here, because Eretz Yisrael. So he looks at me and says, what do you got to say? So God was with me. I said, Nun Gimel Hey Pei adds up to 138. 138 is Gematria Tzemach. Es Tzemach David. Tzemach is Mashiach ben Yosef.
Tzemach is David.
Es Tzemach David. The offspring of is Mashiach ben Yosef.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. It's
called
interesting.
the offspring of David?
Tzemach means the outgrowth of David, because he comes first and then David. Yeah. But the Ari says, when you pray in Shemon Esrei as Tzemach David, you're really praying that Mashiach ben Yosef doesn't die. That's what the Ari says, yeah. But anyway, so I told that to the guys. Tzemach David, that's yeah. Wow, that was, it's like anyway. But so therefore, but it's not on that. The word Chashmonoim. If you look at the oasis of Chashmonoim, it spells Shemen Echad, Shemen Aleph Ches Yom. One vial, 8 days. The word Chashmonoim. Also, Or is the 25th letter of the Torah, the word of the Torah, because Chanuka happened on the 25th day. Right? A lot of different interesting ramazim and so on. But what you see clearly that, so in essence, Chanuka represents, the menorah represents the Orishon. When you look at the menorah, it represents the Or Rishon. Why 8? Because the Or Rishon really is a forerunner to the Or of the 8,000th year. That's the Or, beginning of the Or of Eilam Haba. That's what the Or Rishon is, the main Eilam Haba. Therefore, 8 always represents L'mayla min HaTeva. And that's why it's Hidur. Why is it you have to beautify the lamp? Because that's the Or Rishon, which is beautiful. Hodoloi. And that's why you can't use it. Because that Or is not something you there for use. It's the perception, right? And therefore you could look at it l'roisim bilvad, but you can't use it. You see, all the halachas somehow emanate from the theme of Chanuka, which is the Tikkun of the Or Rishon. You see. So what does it mean to us? So they failed in the end. You see, they failed. In other words, part of the pagam remains in terms of the Kabbalah of the Or Rishon. So therefore, what happens to us? We therefore do the Tikkun by observing the halachas. See, there are different ways of doing the Tikkun. One is the primary Tikkun event, right, which was the Matan Torah. Then there's a secondary Tikkun event, which is the makeup, which was Chanuka. But if that fails, then by observing the halachas of Chanuka, right, we also complete the Tikkun. That's why the halachas are really a completion, and that's why the halachas always mirror the theme of the Yom Tov. You see that by Pesach. Everything else, you always see that the halachas mirror the pnimius, the theme of the day itself. In any case, therefore we see what the concept of Chanukah really is. That there's a spiritual necessity which Klal Yisrael fails to do, or they fail to do it sufficiently, therefore the Baruch Hashem sets them up. And this is the same concept as Purim. All of these are nothing more than set up. And there's one question which I forgot. Why did they make Chanukah a national holiday? Why? The Jews have been saved many times throughout history. Why make Chanukah? Because of the menorah? No. Because the Chazal know, after the menorah, that if there's a major tikkun that is done, therefore that has to be a Yom Tov. But if it's merely the reinforcement of a previous tikkun, then that's, just to be saved isn't enough to have a holiday commemorate that day. It has to be an incredible spiritual achievement that was done on Chanukah, and therefore that becomes a holiday. You
So
see?
they broke new grounds on Hanukkah.
Yes.
And it stayed. They didn't fail.
No, not completely. Exactly. And we
They
complete.
achieved
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And we can, and that's why Rebbe didn't write a Masechta. It wasn't because he was angry at them because he's revenge. No, it's just because what these guys did is the same thing what Aaron did. They failed to bring the Mashiach. Had they gotten off the throne, Mashiach ben Yosef would have come. Same thing. Mashiach ben David would have come. Exactly. See, that's why he failed to. He refused to honor them with their own Masechta or Masechta Chanukah. It's interesting. It's all.
You're saying that Mashiach ben Yosef that comes today will not bring the final tikkun. He might show the world a whole different dimensions. He might bring down the light of Mashiach, but at a certain point he's going to have to get off and give over the reins to Mashiach ben David.
He's supposed to get killed.
No. Mashiach ben Yosef does not die. That is number one. And the riot to that, or the remez, the Vilna Gaon says this, Ramchal, the Ari, and one Lashon the Zohar says this. He was supposed to die. There's a gzera of Misa, but the Moshe was mishan the gzera. So instead of dying at one shot, he comes back in many gilgulim and he suffers. So if you added up all the suffering, it would kill anybody, but since it's spread over many lifetimes, he lives. And there are reasons for that, and so on, you know. And the riot for that, the remez, the Goyim brings this remez, because it says by when everybody thought Yosef was dead, right? And then Serach Basosha told him he was alive, so he said, Oid Yosef Chai. My son Oid still lives. We all thought he was dead. That's Mama's the remez, the Goyim says, you know. It's an interesting mamash of remez.
Oid Yosef Chai goes that Mashiach ben Yosef won't die.
Won't die, yeah. Nice remez. Yeah.
So
Because the Moshe was Bishan Dixera. What?
He brings the Gugula, right?
Yeah.
And then he gives over the reign to Mashiach ben David?
No, he doesn't give over reins in that sense. That's not his job. See, Ben David is the Malchus, the executive branch. You see? But the legislative, in a certain way, although it's not exact, the teacher of Klal Yisrael is Ben Yosef. The one who brings the Orishan. Mashiach Ben Yosef has 4 jobs. I don't get to the whole shit about Mashiach Ben Yosef. But each one has different jobs, but they reign together in that sense. But they just have 2 different functions. Mashiach Ben Yosef is a Messiah. He is a Mashiach. He's not a secondary, because you see that, and take a look at the Haftarah of Vayigash, where it says, Eitz Yosef, that they will no longer fight each other. V'hoyu, the famous expression, Rav Chaim brings down all the time, V'hoyu liachodim biyodi, and they will be as one in my hand. Means both will be Mashiach, except there will be 2. That's a very important concept, that there are really 2 Messiahs, but they have different functions. Ben Yosef, the function is to destroy Ra. He goes into the klip and destroys it. And Ben David is Vishpashas Kedusha. One is Kfir Saranya, is Pashas
You see where
Kedusha.
the Chashmonaim, they should have stayed as Kohen Gadol, which is the teacher,
Yeah.
spirituality, and they should have
And give it over the executive, exactly. Yeah,
kingdom,
which is that's the Nasi, the base Nasi. Exactly.
Yeah.
You have 2 different inyanim there.
So they could have stayed on as Kohen Gadol.
Yeah,
That's what
but
Chazal told
power,
you.
what does it say? As Lord Carrington says,
How come?
power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Caligula said that, no?
Was that?
Caligula said
No, Lord Carrington said that. Caligula, wow.
Why are they Kovei
Long time
Chanukah right
ago.
away?
Was that?
Why are they Kovei Chanukah right away? If the Chanukah that they were Kovei was a Tikkun, because the Chachamim did not finish off the Tikkun themselves, so
Yeah.
then how could they misakin it right away?
No, I don't know. The
They only
menorah
messed
was
up
3
after
years
the-
later, but when did the first Hanukkah start? I don't know if it started right away.
It says the Shana, the next year, they were Kovei for Yantam.
But the question is, how universal, whatever, But the main idea is that there was a tikkun of the Orishan. But that doesn't mean Mashiach would come. That would depend on if the Chashmonaim got off. Even if they commemorated the tikkun, but not that there was a Mashiach. That's the second stage. But in order for that to happen, you need these guys to get out. You can't have a Mashiach. If they don't get off, there's no Mashiach. Because it's Al Yidei Schus. These guys got to get off it, by their own Bechira.
Chanukah became sort of a mechanism for Tikkun, for us to perform only after they didn't get up.
Yes, then it took on new meaning, exactly. Yeah, that's right. Anyway, so this is the Pnimis of Hanukkah, which is very different to what everybody thinks. You see, it's a whole different, really it's an entirely different Yontif. But then again, whenever you know the Pnimis of something, usually comes out to be very different than what people think. Same concept with Purim, Pesach. The Pnimis of all these holidays is very different than most people think. It's interesting. Most people are familiar with the historical event, but not with the real ruchnius of the holiday, you see. Okay. We ran down everything? What's that? Who?
Aluach Levechais.
What's that?
You wrote it on the top.
Luchais, right?
What is it?
The lave is called Luchais also.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
Shkoyach.
Okay. Next week, by the way, I was going to say next week, Mitzvah Shabbos. I don't think I can make it.
A lot of guys.
A lot of guys.
Yeah.
A lot of guys are putting. I'm having a Suda get together. It's a big family time. What can I say?
Yeah.
For the Goyim it's Thanksgiving, and for the Jews it's Chanuka. And so on. So next week I think we'll have to let it go, and then the following, because a lot of guys probably that's a lot of guys are not even here because it's party tonight.
Yeah.
So in 2 weeks we'll
Get it
resume.
online.
Hey.
Shkoyach.
It's important, I want to thank the people who brought the latkes and all the other good stuff.
Nishmas,
What's it? Ilui Nishmas who?
Graham.
It should be, Aliyas Neshama. Schus. Divrei Torah, Hanukkah. It's how else are you supposed to? That's how you can commemorate. Okay.
I don't understand one thing.
Only one? Wow, that's not bad. Other things I don't know.
That's one thing that's glaring at me.
Glaring?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Adam Arishan he was on the Madrig of Adam Arishan.
Who was?
Adam Arishan.
Adam was on the Madrig of Adam Rishon?
Yeah. And if he would have
Okay.
if he would have
Say
passed
so.
the test, he would have been Mashiach with Mashiach. He would
It
have
would
been
be Mashiach, yeah.
right. So too Klal Yisrael Har Sinai. They're on the same madrega as Adam Rishon.
In the same state,
The same.
without the Zohar, yeah.
Right. Now, wouldn't it have to be that the Yidden by Chanukah should also be in that same madriga in order for this tikkun to take effect of Mashiach, for Mashiach to come?
Not necessarily. It could be not, you know. That happened to be because they had 210 years to remove the Zohar, you see. But by Chanuka, maybe they wouldn't have removed it, but the Mashiach would have come. You know, it's hard to know because it never happened, but maybe had they not, they gotten Chamar Chashmenoim would have gotten off, then somehow.
The tikkun would have been enough, even though they're not on that madriga.
Exactly. It's hard to know because it never happened in Maisa, you know. We know that it didn't happen because of this reason, even though that was really the tikkun, because they fought the Greeks. That was the critical thing: is to fight the Greeks.
So what are we supposed to do nowadays?
What?
I haven't noticed that nowadays on Hanukkah, by lighting candles, we do tikkun of Or Hagonos. I never noticed it.
The what?
That nowadays we are doing tikkun of Or Hagonos.
That's what we're doing.
I mean, are we really doing it without having any slightest idea that we are doing
You
it?
and most other people don't have the slightest idea. No, but still, you're lighting a candle in commemoration of what they did, right? So that emunah, that you believe that what they did was right, even if you're not sure what they did, that's the tikkun. Because that's why you're lighting. Why else are you lighting candles? Because you believe that the Jews fought the Greeks and they were fully right to do that.
It's the same Indian.
Same in
In a
yes.
very
So
weak- in a
therefore,
very weak-
you're masking to the whole parsha of Hanukkah, whatever that was. You know what I'm saying? It's like you daven. You don't do all the kavanas. Yet, you know, you're masking whatever kavanas are in there should apply. So, what's your name? No.
That's my wife.
Oh, hi.